Okay, Calvin.
Hi.
Okay, so you asked me.
There you go. All right, let's go.
Amazing. All right, so you asked the question, why do we work? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Where does this question come from?
From the questions from my friends. My friends is asking me.
Why are they asking this?
They feel very repetitive in life, that they don't have endings. They feel like every single day is going to be the same until they die. And then they feel like there's no endings. And every single day they just go into the same routine, same route, same way of driving, everything.
Thank you for explaining where this question comes from. Because I find that it's a question that many of us have asked ourselves at some point in life. Or if not, we're asking it right now, or we continuously ask ourselves, what is the purpose of life? Why are we working? Why am I repeating the same circle, right? Or cycle again and again and again? So I ask this because it's important to understand this question. And by you asking this question, or your friends asking this question, it means that awareness has opened up. Right? They're becoming more aware of your reality, becoming more aware of the world and the perceptions that you might have in this world right now. So let's put you, or let's put a little friend here, right? And let's say that this is life here. Yeah, this is the sea, water. What tends to happen for most of us is, due to conventional wisdom and how we're taught in life, we begin to mistake the sea, right? This life, as our means for living, which is our jobs or our work. So we begin to mistake our work for the sea itself, when our work tends to be like a log. So there's several logs floating in the sea that we call life, or as I was explaining earlier, in the game that we call life. And so let's say this is work, this is house, this is relationships, right? And what tends to happen is, let's say our friend here, Calvin, finds this log and says, you know what? This looks like a pretty solid log. Looks good, nice and sturdy. Let's make it my life. Right? Again, we began to mistake the sea for this log. So what happens there, as you saw, is we began to put all our efforts into fitting into this log, that in this one we call work, that it becomes so conditional. And because it's materialized, or it's created through human effort, anything created through human effort in itself, in this reality, is confined by the conditions of this world. And by material world, I mean, for example, this is matter, right? Somebody had an idea, they had to conceptualize this and then bring it into this world, this pencil, to be able to use it in this way so that we can draw like this. So what happens is Mr. C here shrunk in size from this beautiful vastness that we call life, the sea of life, right? They shrunk and became smaller in order to fit the conditions. To fit the conditions of this log.
Mm-hmm.
So that then their playground or their game is defined within the constraints of this log itself. But yet there's so much to explore, so much to see here in the sea of life. But for a time being, in our perception, this log becomes so definite, so permanent, until what happens? Life comes in, right? And washes it away. And Calvin, or Mr. C,
Mm-hmm.
is left to swim. And so this is what either you or many of us have probably gone through as you were talking about those cycles, right? Keep repeating those cycles of finding a log and making it or shrinking ourselves to make it our entire life, our entire world.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, it's a log that will come and go. And in our human condition, we must continue swimming towards our final destination, which becomes that happiness that doesn't leave us or that lasts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the why that we talk about. And I'll show this in another video. But it becomes the purpose for life. Why? To achieve that happiness that never abandons us.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes we mistake these logs, such as work, for the final destination, when work itself becomes a means to be able to live in this world. So it's more of the how you get to live, how you want to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
The moment that work no longer exists, then we must shift, break away from that pattern or break away from that cycle. Talk about cycles of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And understand, I must keep swimming. I must keep going on, because life, as you can tell, is quite vast and diverse.
Mm-hmm.
So I must keep swimming and release that log as best as possible. Release it so that I don't attach myself to these things, to these logs. The moment that I attach, okay, this is when the suffering starts. And so this story teaches us that when we talk about life, or the sea of life, we need to understand that these logs are simply how we want to play the game that we call life. So then the more important question is not how I want to play life. You know, we can find many ways to do that. It's Why am I here? What is my purpose? Or rather, the purpose of my existence. Because to exist, you don't need to do anything. You just are. To exist you be, as we say. There's no effort that needs to be put in being in that sense. Right? We get so caught up in the doing that we mistake doing for being. So the question I want to ask you is not why am I working? It's more, what does this work enable me to do or be in this world? How do I want to live my life that is in full alignment with my being? Because so many people get caught up in boxes, right? Or these logs, in shrinking onto these logs. Start again. So finding the logs when the sea is so vast, and by sea life, the people shrink themselves and their life becomes this log. When life is out here. So how can I work or align my work with how I want to be or move through this life? So then you're no longer restricted by this log. We understand life. We understand that these material creations are simply a means for living. Right? And we can expand ourselves, maybe jump from log to log, or shrink ourselves. Depending on what we're choosing or how we're aligning our being, right? Our being, our person, to the game or the sea that we call life.
And